Hi everyone. I just noticed how bright that little light was. Hi. Welcome to the training if you're coming on. I just started, so I don't see anybody on right now, but you guys know I like to keep everything pretty short, so I'm just going to wait a minute or two. I'm going to review some notes that I have here to make sure that I don't leave anything out. And if you're coming on, say hi. So I just have a couple of things I want to look at to make sure I don't leave anything, and then I'll get started. Give you guys a minute to come on. So, forgiveness. The reason, first, I wanted to come on and talk about why I decided to do this training right now. I posted a blog post a couple of months ago that I realized could have been interpreted as kind of righteous, and that wasn't really my intent. But in that blog post, I said I was going to start doing a lot more trainings in my group, and I've only really done one or two since then and posted some other tools in there. So I am going to start trying to make a habit out of this, and forgiveness is one of the most important things that you can add to your toolbox as a parent, as a person, as a spouse, as a friend, as a kindness to yourself. It's just so important. And so besides wanting to offer more trainings and for this being so important, I also touched on this in the podcast that I did a couple of weeks ago. If you haven't had a chance to check that out, I did get some feedback that it was really enlightening and helpful for a lot of people. And so I put pretty much everything out there of me that would explain why I do what I do and why I think it's so important to do this work. And I talk about forgiveness and when I first really grasped the concept of forgiveness, like truly really experienced it. I've always known forgiveness is important, and I've been working on forgiveness, I would say, really for the last year or so, but it's really started to show in really big ways for me in the last 3 or 4 months. So it's been really wonderful and light, and it's just a way for me to be able to move on and let go of the things that have really been keeping me stuck. So I just had this panic attack that I was live to like all of Facebook and not just you guys, my group. I know I put this in the group. So let me just get onto the page so that I can see comments coming in, hopefully, and then I'll get started. So, yep, there I am. Okay, so forgiveness. What is it? I'm going to probably circle back on this once or twice as people come on. But forgiveness is, it's a really, really important part of emotional healing. The inability to forgive really, hey Erica, I just started because I kind of figured people would start rolling in here in a minute, so you're getting here at the perfect time. Forgiveness is something that, if not done, can really hold you back. It's something that is going to keep you living in this space of like turmoil and regret, and you're not going to be able to move forward unless you can start to forgive the things, the hurts of your past and the hurts that you experienced towards yourself, the hurts that you've experienced from other people or other wrongdoings. So it's super important to learn how to forgive. And so there's this stigma that comes with forgiveness, though, and this is why it took me so long to really understand it, is that forgiveness is, we're told to forgive and forget. And we're also told that, like, you forgive and you move on. And in my experience, my interpretation of forgiveness is that if you forgive somebody, then you're telling them that the thing that they have done to you is okay. And that is not the case. that said, now this is something I heard a long time ago, but wasn't really able to apply it until recently. Forgiveness is the ability to acknowledge that everyone is doing the best they can in the moment of those interactions. And that I think is really, really hard to understand, especially when we're in like constant conflict and turmoil with people. If we can't understand and wrap our heads around that, we're going to always be thinking that we're this victim in this situation, which is something that we don't want, because victimization is another thing that holds us back. And so when we can learn to forgive and learn to release those things, they no longer hold us back, and then we can move forward and having the lives that we want to have. We can connect more deeply with our children, our spouses, we can make progress at work, we can do the things that we need to do in order to move forward. And so what is forgiveness? The best way I heard to describe forgiveness, and this is how everything really clicked for me, and it comes from The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, and it is oh my gosh, this is like the only quote I know and I've forgotten about it. Okay, forgiveness is giving up the hope that the past could be any different. It's giving up the hope that the past could be any different. It just is. And when we resist the things that have happened in the past, how does that hold you back? I'm thinking about it right now, the things that I resist and the things that I'm not able to work through or process without forgiveness, and I can feel it in my chest. It like hurts right here, and there's some pressure there just from the thought of not being able to forgive. Just thinking about it, and I don't have anything in the moment right now that I can think of that needs to be forgiven, but it's an ongoing practice. And so he writes in his book, forgiveness is the relinquish of your grievance, and so to let go of your grief. It happens naturally when you realize your grievance serves no purpose except to strengthen a false sense of self. Forgiveness is to offer no resistance to life, to allow life to live through you. And the alternatives are pain and suffering. And so what I realize is that until you experience this, is that it's really hard to know forgiveness. And so maybe just hearing that is enough for some people, and others are gonna maybe have to apply it to a certain situation or have a new awareness of a situation before they can apply it. But here are some things. You can forgive everything and everyone. And like I said before, it doesn't mean that the thing that they have done is okay. What you're really doing when you're forgiving is forgiving yourself for the feelings that you're having towards the situation. And I'm going to get to how you do it in a couple of minutes. But first I want to talk about some things that might need to be forgiven. Maybe some of these will strike a chord for you. Childhood. Okay, like think about all of the ways that most of us have probably been victimized in some way in our childhood, or maybe we weren't the victim, but we witnessed victimization of somebody else. And so maybe there's this like animosity or remorse towards the people that can't get their stuff together, that can't seem to connect. That would be a situation where you need to do forgiveness. Let's say that you want to lose 10 pounds and you've been wanting to lose that last 10 pounds for the last 10 years, and you just keep on thinking, well, if I could only lose that 10 pounds, and not beating yourself up when you have that extra margarita or when you have the bowl of ice cream. That's another thing to be forgiven. Screaming at your kid. Let's get into the parenting thing. I give a lot of tools in the trainings here in the group so that you could avoid screaming, hopefully, and then even when you do, like how to get past that. But the ones where you don't see it coming, the ones where you're just completely blindsided by whatever it is that they've done and you completely snap, those outbursts I think are the hardest ones to stop, and they're the ones that I'm usually the worst at. Like it just goes and goes and goes, and I can't seem to manage to wrangle myself in. And then here, even as this being the work that I do, it still can be really challenging for me to manage myself around my children the way I want to, just because everything leading up to that is so ingrained in me that in those moments I don't know what else to do, and my emotions are taking over instead of logic. And so when those emotions are coming up and they're so raw, it's really hard to stop myself from reacting in ways that I don't want to. And so those are great opportunities to practice forgiveness. Just acknowledging, you know what, this is the best I could do in that very moment. How can I learn from this? How can I release it? And how can I move on? And we'll get to that. Getting passed over at work. Car accident. Here's an example. I don't want to be political here, but given the political climate in our country right now, the first couple of weeks that our current administration was in office, I was angry, frustrated, mad, couldn't believe all of the things that the previous administration had put into place that were being rolled back or threatened to be rolled back. And a lot of people still are really angry, but I have to tell you, I was to the point I was so angry about it that I couldn't function. My husband would get home from work and I would be like, can you believe what happened today? I mean, it was just those first, 2 or 3 weeks was crazy. And I spent all of this time holding all of this angst and anger and resistance towards what was really happening instead of accepting it. And so I was able to do a lot of forgiveness around that. And I have to tell you, it's so much better. Do I still get angry and worked up about things? Yeah. Is it ruling my life anymore? No. It's just so much better. And then when there's something that comes up that I feel really passionately about, then I can focus my energy on creating the change or doing the things that I want to do to see things be different, call the representatives or write the letters or sign the petitions or do those things like when it's something I'm really passionate about. But if I'm not, if I'm getting worked up about everything every single day, that the energy that I might be able to spend instead with my kids or connecting with myself, connecting with my husband, doing this work that I want to do, like that wouldn't be there because I would have it all wrapped up in this energy over here for these things I can't control. And so forgiveness was really critical in that. And I have to say, in that situation, it really was pretty life-changing. I talked about forgiveness with my mom. My mom being a narcissist, it didn't hit me until just the last few months, probably again the last 3 or 4 months, where I thought she had control over her behavior, and then I realized that she didn't. And then I was like, oh, well, she did do the best she can, even though she treated me that way for so long, and she has everybody in this web of entanglement, of manipulation and everything else. I recognized that she did the best she could, and my forgiving her doesn't mean that I accept her back into my life. It means I just accept the past and what it is. That's all it is. It's acceptance with compassion. So I'm going to talk more about that in just a minute. So how do we do it? I like to keep these short because I know moms are busy. So how do we do forgiveness? There's 2 ways that I'm going to talk about. The first is a Hawaiian forgiveness prayer or meditation. It's called Ho'oponopono, and it's a process that the Hawaiian or Polynesians, they do in order to work through conflict, and it's really pretty beautiful. So there's 4 phrases. It's I forgive you, I love you, thank you, and I'm sorry. And how you do this is you write down or journal all of these hurts, all of these things that you're upset about, all of these things you feel are out of your control, all of the things that you wish you could change, all of the things maybe you're nervous about. So you write out this whole list of however much is there. And then as you reflect and read on the list, you transport yourself emotionally into the feeling of all of those circumstances. Like a few minutes ago, I was talking about how I was feeling some pressure in my chest by just thinking about not being able to forgive. It's like that. Go into that, like, okay, what is that really like? What does it feel like? And really lean into that. And then say out loud to yourself, take a deep breath if you'd like, I forgive you, I love you, thank you, and I'm sorry. And you're not forgiving the person, you're not forgiving the situation, you're forgiving your own self for your attitude or for your response or for your feelings of the situation. Because really that's all we have control over is ourselves, right? And so the I forgive you is to let go of the past. I love you is loving yourself no matter where you are, loving yourself in that moment despite these things you might consider are flaws. Thank you is thanking yourself for recognizing those emotions and those feelings that actually need to be forgiven. And I'm sorry is it's an apology to yourself for having it. You know what I mean? You're apologizing to yourself. You deserve the apology, and it's okay for you to apologize to yourself. So that's one way. The other way I touched on briefly is to kind of reframe forgiveness as acceptance. So instead of saying, and I think that that can kind of help get out of someone's head about it. So like I said before, like forgiveness, a lot of the times it's like, well, you forgive and forget, or if you forgive, that means that the other person doing the thing to you was okay. But if you can reframe it to acceptance and add a little compassion into it, you'll get the same effect. If you need something quicker, or if this is an easier way for you to apply it, it just is. You know what I mean? You could have all of this resistance and harbor all of that, or you could accept it and then move into action. You know what I mean? Think about all of these things happening politically. There's a lot of like this resistance movement and whatever, but really the resistance, I think the resistance is about, okay, well, this is the card we've been given right now. We don't want to keep on doing this. And so there are people that are moving into action to make the changes that they want to see. And so it's really kind of a neat thing, even though things are challenging, at least from my perspective, and I'm guessing probably at least a few of you in here, given that you're in my group. Even though things are challenging, there has to be some acceptance in order to like move into the future that we want to see. And so that's a couple of tools that I have that I use for moving into forgiveness. Erica, I don't know if you have any questions. I'm glad you've been hanging in here with me the whole time. You can comment if you'd like. I have some notes. I want to make sure I didn't leave anything out. So, yeah. I think that is pretty much all I have for the night, unless you've got anything, Erica. I'm gonna wrap this up. Let you guys get back to your evening. If anybody has any questions on this, feel free to post them on the video or in the group. If you'd like me to expand on anything or have any other specific examples that you'd like me to help you process, I'd love to do that for you. And I do have an announcement to make. I mentioned a couple of months ago that I kind of restructured my services so that a lot of my trainings are going to be here in the group, and then I was trying to make my coaching services as accessible as possible. But on some reflecting on that, I currently have a 12-week program to help people become learn to parent the way they want to, and I decided to extend that out to it's still 12 calls, but I decided to extend it out to 6 months because that will serve you better as parents when you're going through these developmental phases of your children. Our kids go through a developmental phase about every year or so. Some of them are bigger than others. You may have realized that already depending on the ages of your kids, but that I think will serve you better because you'll be able to get through those phases with more support for longer. So any questions on that, go ahead and send me a PM, and I'm gonna wrap it up. Thanks so much for coming in, Erica, and anybody else for coming in later to watch the video. Good luck with this. Let me know any challenges, and I'll see you soon. Bye.